Welcome to the Santam Insure Your Future Money Bootcamp with me, Maya Fisher-French.
And me, Mapalo Makhu. To give our listeners a bit of background, we have been working with Santam staff members where we take them through a money bootcamp.
And last year, after seeing the amazing changes these individuals went through, we realized that there was an opportunity to take this money journey to a broader audience. So thank you very much to Santam for sponsoring this podcast.
Now, in the last 2 episodes, we have looked at saving and investing for those goals we want to achieve during our working years, Maya. But at some point, we want to kick back and retire. I can't wait. One of the massive challenges of retirement is that we are living way past our retirement age. Some companies have a retirement age of 60 and with the longevity close to 90 years. That is 30 years of retirement that you need to fund. That's massive.
Absolutely massive. And I think a lot of people just don't realize, Mapalo, how much longer the next generations are living. So you may see maybe your parents, your grandparents didn't live that long, but we're all just living longer and longer than our parents and grandparents. So, if you're trying to fund this kind of period of time in retirement, there's only really 2 ways to do this. First of all, you either from your first paycheck, you need to be putting away about 18% of your salary. So I'm talking about retiring 1/8. So I'm talking about retiring at 60, okay? You can, of course, defer retirement to 65. So, the problem is a lot of corporates are retiring people at 60. So you've got to make a plan for those other 5 years and not draw down. So if you're putting away 18% of your salary, you may make it to be able to retire at 60. But if you defer to 65, then you need to be putting away 15% of your salary. But how many people have done that? And most people find that they have to supplement their retirement income in some way. So I think in the next episode, we're going to look more detailed about strategies at retirement. But I think today we really want to focus on how to get from where we are now into investing for retirement. And I think, Mapalo, we're going to have to look at the implementation of the 2-pot retirement system and how that's going to affect our retirement outcomes.
Now, my question, Maya, having said all of these stats, how much is enough? How much is it enough to retire at the age of 60 or 65? If you take yourself sitting in your 30 and you want to retire at the age of 60 or 65, what is that number? Is there a magic number? Is there a number that we should be, sort of a benchmark that we should be looking to?
So I think there are, people put out numbers all the time. So if I have a look, most people are saying, look, by the age of 60, if you're going to retire at 65, okay, you need about 10 times your income. So, but remember, it's got to be the income at retirement. So if at retirement you are earning 500,000 Rand a year, then you need 5 million Rand. That will give you 75% of your current income as a retirement benefit, okay? So let's dial that back, because I don't know if you're 30, what that means to you. So at least, so if you're listening to this and you're saying, am I on track? And I mean, this is a little bit of a thumb suck, okay? These are guys just kind of giving you a general rule of thumb. So by the age of 30, you should have saved 1 year of your annual salary. So say, for example, you earn 240,000 a year. You need to have 240,000 in your retirement fund. By the age of 40, you need 3 times your income. By the age of 50, you need 6 times your income, your current income. So if you're 50 now and you're earning 300,000, go check your statements because you should be on at least 1.5 million. Am I right? 3 5s are 15.
Yes.
I'm just doing my maths in my head here, Mapalo. Quickly. So the age of 60, you need 8 times your income. And by 65, you need 10 times your income. Now, I want to make quite a clear point here. If you are 60 and you have 8 times your income saved, it doesn't mean you can retire. Because remember, that's based on a retirement age of 65. So if you want to retire at 60, you probably need closer to 14 times your retirement income, because that's what people forget. The longer you stay working, the less years you have to fund. So it's important to understand these stats in relation to the actual retirement age. But I must say, I think it's worth doing the maths properly and doing it based on your own personal circumstance. So I'll tell you what my husband and I did. We did a retirement budget, okay, but we're a little bit closer to retirement than you are. So we said, okay, this is how much we spend currently. And we took out, okay, our children will be educated by then, so we could take off all the education costs. We obviously our mortgage will be paid off because, of course, retirement is about being debt-free. So
making sure that you don't have
took
debt.
that out. All our retirement contributions obviously would no longer happen because we're in retirement. So we just took out those, but we doubled our medical aid contributions because, and remember we were chatting to Mbali in a previous episode, your medical costs will increase significantly. When you retire. So that's kind of what we did. And then we got a number and we kind of know that that's the number we're targeting.
That you're looking at. But Maya, it is rough, okay? Because obviously, yes, at some point you want to retire and retire very comfortably. But then you have kids, you have medical bills, you have bond, you have cars. There's so much that we need to consider when we are planning for retirement and just our livelihoods altogether. How does one find some sort of a balance? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
You know what I think it is? It's about starting with the first paycheck and never touching it.
Yes.
And I know that sounds, but, at the end of the day, if your net take-home pay, and you, especially if you're working for a corporate, your net take-home pay is your net take-home pay, and they've taken off the retirement funding, and you set your retirement funding at 15%, and you just keep doing that, you kind of sleepwalking your way to retirement. The problem is when you draw down on that money and this is where the two-pot comes in. If you start drawing down on that money because you now want to buy a house or pay off debt, then it becomes very tough to fund that retirement. Then you really now got to start living longer. I mean, working longer and
much
longer
than you would prefer.
And I actually did my newsletter recently for my newsletter followers. And I actually had been looking at some statistics from FNB, and they'd done some really big research on retirement attitudes among their clients. And what was so interesting to me was how young people in their 30s were so much more confident about their ability to retire than somebody at 55.
Oh, wow.
And what that's telling you, but when they said, do you have a retirement plan? They said no. So they just felt something would happen. They'll win the lotto, or they'll start a business, it'll make them a fortune. And so it's like there's this overconfidence factor.
My word. I did not see that one coming.
Yeah. You're totally overconfident about your ability to retire
and yet
when you're young.
There is no plan.
There's no plan. And you treat retirement with a little bit of like, well, it'll come one day and I'll worry about it then. And one day you wake up and you're 55 and you're now...
And that's a little bit...
It's very late.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody listening to this who's younger, because the older people will talk to you about how to get through this problem, but please, I can't begin to tell you, all of you who are dying to pull your money out of the two-pot retirement system and are going to cash in every year because you think this is your money and how dare anyone tell you different, let me tell you, this money belongs to your older self. It belongs to your 60-year-old self. And start having some respect for that 60-year-old self.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say today.
Absolutely, Maya.
Because I'm nearly there. And I can tell you these things. It is true.
It is very true. And I mean, I'll give you an example. When I used to work in financial planning, I remember seeing a lady who had 400,000 rands to her name at her retirement. And what do you tell someone who has 400,000 rand? Because she had done the very same thing. I said, okay, let's take a step back. Obviously, we can't change the situation, but just give me perspective in terms of what happened. How did you get here? She said, I worked in government for 20 years, literally from when I was 21, worked there. When she left government, what did she decide to do? Like most people do. Cashed it in, paid tax. She didn't even know that she was going to pay.
Probably paid about 30 to 40% in tax.
Exactly. Yeah? So that happened. Then she worked at another company, then got retrenched. What did she do? She said, when I finally get the next job, I'll start thinking about it. And now she's like in her late 40s. And so it went until she just did not have enough to retire.
Now, this is what we see. We see it all the time. And if we could only get people to understand that pot of money there is for the person you're going to be later.
Yeah. And what about people, Maya? I mean, even just with the two-pot system, I've heard so many people say, but people don't even live to that long. What if I don't make it? Then it's my money. You know, how do we start changing mindset specifically around thinking about our future selves? Because, I mean, I'm here today and all I can think about are the needs that I have for today. right? But for me, I think I'm lucky in the sense that I work in the industry for sure, but I look at my parents. My dad is 73. 73 years old, and they need money. You need to have money. And so I don't want to get to that age and not have anything either.
My mom's 85. So, let me tell you, people live a long time. And I think one of the things that was quite interesting to me with the Government Employee Pension Fund, just as an example, I've been doing some educational work with them. Their longevity rate is 82 years old. So yes, you get people who die soon after retirement. There are some people, and we don't know. I mean, it'd be so nice if we knew the date we were going to die. We could plan much better.
Oh, no, I would.
But statistically, you are going to live well into retirement. That's the statistics. And do you really want to take that bet? Do you want to take a bet that you're going to die young? Or are you going to be in a position where you wish you died young because you actually couldn't put... And I don't want to just depress everyone on the podcast, but when I was working in stockbroking, there was a guy who came to us and he did not have enough money to retire and eventually took his own life. And that is, you don't want to be in that position, So I know I'm sounding very doom and gloom, but I think
also,
it's important.
Maya, I think it's very important. These are the conversations that are very important that we do need to have. I think another area that we hardly speak about, right, is the fact that if you do not save for retirement, you are perpetuating black tax or family tax. Okay? So for me, if you are young, around our age, you have kids, make sure that you save for retirement, because those very same kids that you claim and wonderfully love, they're going to have to take care of you. And that's a burden that you do not want to put your kids through.
Mapalo, you and I have spoken before about this, the choices you make. And we've spoken about the choice of the, the really expensive car versus paying your school fees, right?
Yeah. But
also it's about your retirement planning. So if you cannot, and it's quite interesting, I think we've spoken about this before, where what can you afford? And I've always said, my husband and I always said, we will give our children the education we can afford, but afford meant being able to fund our retirement.
Yes.
Afford wasn't, we do this before our retirement savings. So we've always been very clear about the need to put away money for our retirement. And I think it is a mindset that you've got to accept that, it's this simple. There's 15 to 18% of your income every month from the day you start working that is for the future.
And it just keeps on growing.
It keeps growing.
But also for me, there's nothing I love more seeing my money grow, over the years.
But, I want to talk about investing, because that is actually talking about your money growing. And I keep coming back to this. I think the reason, so let me tell you, everybody at the age of 30 changes jobs. It's quite a common time, and everyone cashes in. And one of the reasons they cash in their pensions is they see 100,000 Rand and they're like, oh, that's not a lot of money. I'll pay off my bond or I'll put a deposit on a house. That's more useful. So say you're in the market and you've got 100,000 Rand invested and the market returns 10%, that the fund gives you 10%. That's only 10,000 Rand that year. So you're thinking, I can do better than this. If that money was R1 million and you got the same 10% return, the return's now 100,000 Rand, right? So this is the power of compounding. And you're never going to reach the R1 million if you keep cashing it in.
Yeah.
But the minute you get to R1 million, then and that's why you're saying you're enjoying watching your money grow. There comes a time when you start doing because you and I do this net asset value at the beginning of the year. Mapalo and I both do this. We have a spreadsheet and we put in, because we're money counters, we like Scrooges, we put in the value of all our investments, and it's so nice to see it growing.
Yes.
And let me tell you, the larger the lump sum, the more it grows, in Rand values, because of the power of compounding. So you're never going to get to that point if you keep thinking 100,000 is not enough money.
And Maya, we spoke about on the budgeting episode where, we were saying that currently I'm on my survival budget. Even in my survival budget, my retirement annuity goes off, my tax-free savings goes off. And it's something that is sacred to me, and I will never ever not contribute to those things if I can afford to. Absolutely.
Absolutely. It is, to me, it has to be the very last thing that goes. But maybe we should just, take people through. I know one of the big things people say, well, where do I invest for retirement? What are the best places to start off with? So maybe we start off with, someone who's working for a company. And many people listening to this, and certainly our mentees at Santam are all members of the retirement fund, which I must say is very rich, I have to tell you. They get a very,
it's quite comprehensive.
It's comprehensive. They get very good employee benefits. I'm like, oh, good company. Maybe when you work for an insurance company, that's what happens. You get lots of these really good benefits.
Yeah.
So if you are, already, contributing, I always say the first thing you do is every time you get your bonus, you put 27.5% of your bonus straight into that retirement
because
fund.
most of these pension provident funds really allow you to do that. But also, Maya, when you get an increase in your salary, do you advise that people sort of split it and say, okay, 1% or 3% goes towards that, so that, that increase also goes towards your pension or provident fund?
So quite a lot of our mentees have done what they shouldn't have done at 30 and cashed in. So one of the ways to catch that up is to exactly that, is every year, so they get their increases in March, is that the HR, is to instruct HR, and they've done that the HR must increase the percentage of their salary that goes to the retirement funding. So say at the moment, maybe you're on 12% of your pension, of your salaries going to retirement. You say make it 14% next year.
Yeah.
Because you'll have that increase, and then most of the increase then will go in, you'll have a little bit out because remember it's tax deductible.
Yes.
So there's a nice little tax gain there as well. So that is what it is. I mean, if you do that if you go up by 2% every year, within 5 years, you will have actually increased that by, if you think you're going from 12 to 14, but now remember it's to 16 point something so very quickly you'll get to like 20% of
that is incredible.
It's
such an easy thing to do.
Exactly.
Right?
And I think if you're listening to this and you're underfunded for retirement, just go to your HR and say, every year I want you to increase my contribution to the pension fund by 2% of my salary.
Yeah.
And within very, very quickly remember you can put away 27.5% of your salary tax free. I got my tax return. I got a nice rebate on my retirement annuity, feeling very happy. It's being invested. It's
I
not
was
being
about to
spent.
ask, are you taking me out for dinner after this?
So that's, I think, a great way to do it. It's actually called Save More Tomorrow concept, and I like that.
Tomorrow. Yeah. All right. So that's through your employer if you have a pension or provident fund. But what if you are self-employed? What vehicle should you use?
Yeah, I think for me, and I know you do as well, I have a retirement annuity. And I want to talk a little bit about the use of a retirement annuity versus a tax-free savings account.
Yes.
Because a lot of people say, oh, don't do the retirement annuity, use the tax-free savings account. 3,000 Rand a month's not enough for my retirement. I don't know about you. I'm putting away a lot more than that. So I definitely use a retirement annuity. I like the tax deduction that I get on it. But the thing with a retirement annuity is that you get if you work for yourself, you get the tax deduction, but that means you get this rebate, right?
Yes.
From your tax return. And then people go and spend that, and they think that it's a bonus, like as in a spending bonus, and they go off and spend it. Then you're not getting the tax benefit of a retirement annuity. So what you want to do is you want to get that, if you get a rebate of 20,000 Rand, you immediately go and you add that to your retirement annuity.
Maya, I must say, and I'm going to be honest, when I have gotten my rebate, some money back from SARS because I contribute to a retirement annuity, I literally say 10% of this, I'm just going to go out for coffee. Then the rest, definitely put it back into my retirement annuity.
But then you're not maximizing the tax benefit. Just saying. But yeah. So that is obviously the retirement annuity. But I think it's also important is how we choose retirement annuities. Sorry, I'm going to be this is not advice, by the way. You can use a financial advisor. But I am not crazy at all about retirement annuities that are insurance backed, especially if you're self-employed.
Absolutely.
I think it should only be investment linked.
An asset manager, 100%. And we speak about this quite often. And for me, I always say, if you want insurance companies are fantastic. If you want to invest in your retirement annuity tax-free savings account, make sure that it's pure 100% investment. It just makes so much more sense in terms of fees, number one, but also the funds that you can access.
Yeah, and especially self-employed. So an insurance-backed retirement annuity is you sign up for this thing for the next 20, 30 years. And a lot of the commission is paid up front. And, there's a lot of things that I'm not crazy about in the structure of it. And the other problem is that if you decide to stop contributing for whatever reason, you actually effectively are penalized.
That is very upsetting. I mean, imagine if I was on this survival budget as I am right now, and I felt like, maybe let me stop the contributions maybe for 2-3 months. Then I would get penalized for not having money.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not crazy about those products at all. And you also can find some really, really, really cost-effective retirement annuities now, like that are coming in, 1%.
Yeah.
And I think if you're paying an annual fee of 1%, that's okay. The minute you're starting to pay 2.5%, it is destroying your wealth. That compounding effect over time is massive.
Yes, I think we speak quite a lot on compound interest, the growth, but we don't talk enough about the compounding cost and fees, how it completely just eats away at your return. And I mean, you want as much money in your own pocket, especially for retirement or any investment for that matter. So in the next episode, we are going to have Johan here, who is a brilliant financial planner. Last year he helped so many of the mentees around financial planning and retirement planning. So 100% we believe in good financial advice.
Good financial advice, and good financial advice is worth paying for.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here is the product. I would rather be paying that other percent to a financial planner who's helping me navigate my financial plan and making sure that my investments are done correctly, my insurance is done correctly, that I've got an estate plan, all of those things, than paying it for a product fee.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The product is actually pretty simple, right? Choose a simple product, you get your turn, doesn't have to be fancy, rather spend the money on getting a good advice. That's my approach to life.
Yeah. And now, Maya, let's go back to tax-free savings accounts. Yes, we understand that you have to have a retirement annuity because of the structure, the benefits that it does give you, and also, truly speaking, $36,000 every single year, and it's capped at 500,000.
It's just not enough.
So it's just not enough. But I think it could be a wonderful way, if you do have a retirement annuity, to supplement even further with tax-free money.
Oh, we love tax-free money. Yeah, so I think the first of all, just one of the big advantages as well of retirement annuities, it's protected from creditors.
Yes.
So as a self-employed person with your own business, fantastic instrument to protect from creditors. Just mentioning that as an aside. And also it's got estate planning benefits as well because of the way it's treated in terms of taxation on death and all sorts of things. But one of the questions we get quite frequently is, I may have a retirement annuity, or I may be a member of my company's pension fund. So if I'm a member of my company pension fund, should I also have an RA? And there I think there's a good question mark around, is this where you introduce tax-free savings accounts? So again, it's how much you need to save. So maybe you want to put away quite a lot more than 3,000 Rand a month as a supplement to your existing fund. Then maybe you need to still look at a retirement annuity. But for me, if I was working for a company and I wanted to top up on my retirement,
and maybe you've done that increase with
you've done
your
the increase, you're maximizing your benefits within your own company. I think there's a real place for a tax-free savings account. And I certainly have an RA and a tax-free savings account. And that's because, yes, I'm paying with after-tax money into my tax-free. It's already been taxed in my hands into the tax-free savings account, but it is growing all that beautiful compounding, wonderful. We talk about that million that becomes 100, gives you 100,000 in a year. That 100,000 of return that you've got that year is fully taxed. It can be taxed under capital gains tax. If it's in a tax-free savings account, it's doing that tax-free.
Completely tax-free.
And what a powerful thing to get into retirement and have this money that you can draw tax-free.
Tax-free. And I think, if you start thinking about it in that way, that not only for savings and investments, but if you do it as part of your retirement planning too, that money is completely tax-free.
Yeah, I love it. I think, and again, you definitely need to be working with a financial planner, especially before getting into retirement and making sure you're as tax efficient as possible. But one of the best ways to make sure you're tax efficient as possible at retirement is building up a lot of money into that tax-free savings account.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, Maya. And what about discretionary funds offshore? Because, with retirement annuities and pension and provident funds, there's what you call Regulation
28. Yeah.
How does that come into play?
So, for many years, a lot of financial planners or just people generally said, one of the problems with retirement funds in South Africa is that they were limited to I think it was 25% offshore. I can't remember the actual number. I think it even started off at 15%.
Yes.
And they were saying that is not enough in terms of the fact that you're in this one tiny little country at the bottom of a continent, and I think South Africa makes up like 1% of the world or something like that. So they were saying you need global exposure. You want to have exposure to companies like Facebook and Google, and maybe you don't, but Amazon and all these great technology companies that are out there, and you don't have access to them in South Africa. So you should have additional investments outside of the country or have exposure to them. But we've seen a huge change locally that allows funds now to have up to 45% of their investments offshore, of your pension fund offshore. That actually changed, and most of the funds have actually increased to around 40 to 45%. So I would start off by checking, what is my pension fund actually invested in? That's something none of us do. When did you last actually check what is the underlying investment? So I think that is a good starting point. Do I have that offshore exposure? And then the other part, of course, to look at is to say, well, do I ever intend retiring overseas? Do I plan on educating children overseas? Yeah. So I think those are some of the things that you can consider. But again, it needs to be quite a holistic kind of approach about where do you want to be and how much money do you have offshore.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to tax-free savings accounts, our love, it's not restricted in terms of which funds you can choose. So that 6,000 Rand, it can be a completely offshore fund that is sitting here in South Africa. So that's another beauty of a tax-free savings account.
Yeah, 50% of mine is in the MSCI World Index. So I have half of my contributions going into a fund that gives me exposure to the 1,600 largest companies in the world.
In the entire world. That's
Sorry, guys, just understand that for a moment. You can very simply, I think the minimum, we happen to be with Satrix, mine happens to be with Satrix. For a minimum, I can't like $200 or something. Their minimums are even lower. You can go and have exposure to the top 1,600 companies in the world.
That is powerful.
Powerful. And the fees are low.
Yeah, that is very powerful, Maya. All right, so let's wrap up planning for retirement, Maya. What should people be looking out for? And the easy win for me is if you have any employer pension provident fund, just stick with it. Stick with it.
And do this increase, right? Every year, just increase it.
And forget about it. When you leave your employer, don't think, oh goodness, that's a little pot of gold that I can have access to. Just truly try forget about it. Make sure that you're invested in good funds. Look at which funds your employer provides for you. Because a lot of people actually never look at that. They just know that there's this money going off of me, and it would be better if the money came into my account.
I know people always get very upset. They get very upset because the company's taking money away from them, but it is your money. So go look at it and see how it's invested. And I think, Mapalo, also, if you're now listening to episode 10, which is what this is. Hopefully by now you've got a budget.
Yes.
You have your emergency funding. You've paid off your debts. Because one of the people say, I can't afford this retirement fund. I need to pay off my debts. I need to do this. Well, actually, you don't need to access your retirement fund to pay off your debts. If you listen to episode 1 all the way to now, we will have given you strategies to do this. So don't keep thinking of your retirement fund as your get out of jail card.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
Just briefly, Maya, on the two-pot system. What are the advantages for you looking at what is being introduced?
I like the two-pot retirement system. So what has happened is government has effectively introduced mandatory preservation. So they've said we cannot keep having people cashing in their pensions and coming up to retirement with no money, right? Like the woman you spoke about with 400,000 at retirement. So what we're going to do is we're going to say 2/3 of all your contributions you have to keep for retirement. You can never ever cash them in, even if you change jobs.
Then people ask questions. What if I, resign, get retrenched? People have all these scenarios of, okay, but what happens to my money then? They're 2/3.
2/3 cannot be touched if you resign. So at the moment, they are busy looking at retrenchment. They haven't clarified retrenchment yet. Because obviously if people get retrenched, they may still need, they may be in a desperate situation, right? And so I don't know if government's going to change around that. Currently, if you're retrenched,
it's still...
You can't touch the 2/3 of your retirement funding. But the 1/3 is available. And that's why I think people must not touch the 1/3 because if you never touch the 1/3 that you can access, at retirement, it's your lump sum. Everyone seems to forget this. When you retire, you can take 1/3 as a lump sum, 2/3 you have to buy an income with. If you keep cashing it in, there's not going to be a lump sum.
There's not going to be any lump sum whatsoever.
It's gone. So keep it for that reason. And B, what if you're one day retrenched and you really need that 1/3 and you've been cashing it along the way because you think you'll pay off your house or you'll buy a car or, people need to think very, very carefully about this money. So for me, the net benefit, we know the net benefit is that as an average, South Africans will be better off because most people are cashing in. Obviously, there's a concern that people are going to draw down on the 1/3 without resigning, and that may have implications, but I think the net outcome is going to be positive.
It's going to be positive.
Yeah.
All right. So treat those funds for exactly what they need to be used for, which is retirement.
So I think that's it. Belong to your company pension fund or retirement fund. If you are underfunded, start increasing that every year. Certainly look at tax-free savings accounts as a supplement to retirement and a retirement annuity if you don't have a company pension fund. Very worthwhile, but look at costs, please.
Yes.
You don't need an expensive one. You need one that just ticks the boxes and that works. And I also think it's a good thing to start creating a relationship with a financial planner who can help you guide you through all of these areas and can help you set up so that you have some kind of plan when you get to retirement. And that's definitely what we're going to be talking about in our next podcast when we're going to be joined by certified financial planner Johan Steyn. He's going to provide some guidelines as to what to do, what you need to be thinking about as you get closer to retirement. And we'll also break down that product jargon of all those retirement funds.
That's going to be a good one, Maya. I always enjoy Johan.